Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we will be reviewing Diablo 4 as of Season 4. This video is different from the guides that I've made, so trying something new here. So please let me know what you think, and if you disagree with some of my thoughts, let me know in the comments. And of course, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of this video. Quick review of my season. I started as part of a 4-man necro team, which was really fun. We got to level 100 by Thursday, so we didn't, really push it like some of the top streamers did. Got all my glyphs to level 21, got to about tier 56 for pits, tier 100 for Nightmare Dungeons. But at this point, as of recording this on Tuesday, I am really done with the season, and I really don't want to keep min-maxing my gear or keep grinding. So what really happened? In order to answer that question, I want to set up two things. One, how do I think about video games? And two, how do I evaluate video games? For the first part, in terms of how do I think about video games, well, I really break them down into three loops. There's a first loop, which is your main gameplay loop, which in a game like Diablo, it's the monster slaying and going through the dungeons and using your skills. In a first-person shooter, it's the raid, shooting things, killing things. That's the main gameplay loop. The second loop in a game is what do you do in between the main gameplay loops, right? So in Diablo, you look at your items, you gear up, you review it, you put your build together. In Tarkov, it's your stash management, it's your gun building, it's your hideout management. And the third loop is really, your meta game, you're outside the game, it's the economy, it's the trading, which in RPG and FPS kind of tend to be the same thing. You could also have leaderboards, rankings, those all kind of fall into that long-term value of the game. And the second part is how do I evaluate the video games? For me, it really comes down to how much fun do I have with the game versus how much time do I spend playing the game and investing into it. On the far right, you have Tarkov, which I probably spent about 500 hours per season playing. I put a lot of time into it. It is fun, but the fun is diminished by cheaters, bugs, and other things that BSG tends to do to anger the community. On the other extreme, you have something like God of War. I have a ton of fun playing it, but it only took me 20 hours to beat, and I'm not the type of person to beat a game more than once, so I only really spent the time to play through it, and that's it. And in between, you have Baldur's Gate 3, Project Diablo 2, which are a ton of fun, and I spend maybe 60, 120 hours playing it. That's about it. So now let's talk about the loops in Diablo 4. The main gameplay loop feels good. When you hit a monster, it feels great. My only thing there is that, there's not a lot of builds for each class, so you could use some more diversity around there. The itemization is meh at best. The legendary powers, because of their multiplicative nature, make the builds pretty constrictive. You can't really swap a lot of them out for uniques or other legendary powers because you lose a multiplier and your damage takes a big hit, and that really impacts your ability to run endgame content. And look, you still need a damn loot filter in the game because it takes too long to sort through 100 amulets. Just give me a loot filter that lets me find things where I have the two roles I want. It highlights it, so therefore I don't have to read 100 items before I find the one that I need. And look, there's barely any economy. You can now trade items, there's some economy around it, but let's be honest, it's nowhere near the D2 economy or Path of Exile. So as a result, Diablo 4 for me is about 30 hours, and honestly, it's not that fun. I probably made it 90-95% of the end game, so now I have to min-max my gear. And honestly, I just don't feel like running the pits or Helltide or Nightmare Dungeons to keep finding items that I don't need. And it's only making my build marginally better. So, my review of it is that it's still meh. And I think that might be one of the biggest issues with the game is that Blizzard keeps making the same mistake with every single game. It's almost like they don't learn and fire all the people that make the game good. The itemization in D2 really wasn't that great at the start. Nightmare and Hell relied heavily on rares, and you had to roll 4 or 5 good affixes to be good. It wasn't really till Lord of the Destruction came out that you got the Hell uniques that had opened up Hell, and then really 1.1 gave you the strong rune words that enabled the builds. And look, I'm not saying D2 was perfect. You obviously had your meta builds in your Hammerden, which pretty much all ran the same setup. But you had other classes where, 2 lightning swords that were endgame viable look different. Your barbs look different. And really, it is Project Diablo 2 that really balances the optimizations a lot better. It ends to endgame and is a lot more enjoyable experience. So if you haven't checked out Project Diablo 2, I highly recommend it. Diablo 3 had the same problem. You had to find items with 4 or 5 rolls, so it was impossible to find great items for the endgame. It really wasn't until Reapers of Soul and Loot 2.0 where that was addressed. But Loot 2.0 basically made all the builds set focus, so you had to have the set, and you didn't have a lot of variability in how you would run those builds. And D4 ultimately kind of follows the same formula, right? The set of legendary powers that make a build work are basically a set. So we'll see how this changes, but right now you have 3 to 4 builds per class, and you need the right combination of legendary powers to make it work. I'm still holding up hope that D4 will get fixed, maybe with expansion pack, further reworks, maybe some more interesting boss engagements, but for the moment the game is meh at best for me. That wraps up this week's video. Let me know what you think of the D4 as it stands right now. Let me know if you're enjoying the season. If you want to see more content like this, if you enjoyed this breakdown, also please let me know. And obviously, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Every little bit helps. Thanks, everyone.